Hey everyone, it's Boon here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're venturing into the beautifully bizarre world of Tim Burton. We're making custom Edward Scissorhands doll. That's a mouthful. Okay, let's get started. For the head, I'm using Jackson from the Monster Highline because his head sculpt looks so much like a young Johnny Depp. And for the body, I picked one from a BTS doll since they already have a pale skin tone, perfect for this project. Let's start with the most challenging part of this custom, the outfit. Edward's iconic leather suit is no joke, so I'll be using this organic leather I have on hand. It's not black yet, but no worries, we're going full gothic and painting it black with some black acrylics. I'm also mixing in a bit of faux leather here and there, since Edward's suit is all about that patchwork, pieced together look. Let the tiny tailoring begin. I'm starting with the left leg of the pants, piecing it together using both types of leather, the real one and the faux, so we get that mismatched patchwork feel. Then I'm adding some decorative stitching with black embroidery thread. Next, I close up all of the darts on the pants and combine the two parts in the middle. For the bodice, join the front and the back at the shoulder seams and attach the sleeves and the collar. Then combine them at the side seams like this. At first I went ahead and attached the pants to the bodies of the suit, but spoiler alert, I ended up ripping them apart later. Why? Because I totally forgot that I needed access to install the eyelets. So lesson learned, always plan for the hardware before sewing everything shut. It's not a real custom if there isn't a little bit of chaos, right? Next, I'm working on the outer layer of the shirt. I'm using the same organic leather that I painted black earlier. Just like the pants, I'm cutting it into different pieces and stitching them together to create that patchwork look. Now that the base outfit is done, let's start decorating it with belts, studs and buckle and on and on and on. I started with the collar, stitching small pieces of leather directly on the neckline to look like tiny belts or a choker. I also prepared some belts in different sizes off camera, and I'll be gluing them directly onto Edward's suit to match his iconic look. I kept a photo reference nearby the whole time so I could place each belt in the right spot. For the big belt around his waist, I use craft foam and added texture by embossing it with heat. I also sculpted some of the buckles and rivets using two parts of epoxy sculpt. Oh yeah, I also sculpted some of them using polymer clay. Next, I painted all the buckles and rivets using gold paint, then added a black wash over them off camera to give an age-worn look. I also used some wire to make extra buckles just to add a bit more variety to the materials that we're using. And here I am taking apart his belt. Yep, I forgot to put in the eyelets. Sometimes you've just gotta undo your hard work to get it right. No worries though, we'll fix it and keep going. And here's the pants getting ripped again. Also, I can fix those eyelets I forgot to add earlier. Sometimes customizing means a little extra creative destruction. Now onto the interesting piece on his crotch. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but it's part of his outfit. So we're making it out of craft foam. I'll be using heat to emboss the texture and also to shape it. I also wrapped black wire tape around his arms and legs to add some texture. When working with a mostly monochromatic design like Edward's, using different textures and shapes is key. Since we don't have many colors to play with, it really helps to bring the whole look to life and keep things interesting. Now that the outfit is done, let's move on to the shoes. I'm making the shoes out of Cosclay because it stays flexible after baking. That way, it's easier for us to slide the doll's feet later on. And also I don't have to worry about the shoes cracking or breaking. I'm sculpting the shoes on a shoe base I made earlier using epoxy sculpt. This makes it easier to shape the shoes and keep everything in the right size. After baking, I'll carefully pry them open using my sculpting tools. Before I attach the sole to the baked shoes, I'll brush on some liquid polymer clay. In this case, it's from Nara. This helps the pieces stick together better during the next round of baking, so everything stays nice and secure. I also sculpted the wires on his scissor hands using Cosclay instead of real wire. I use Cosclay again since it's flexible and won't get in the way of his movement. This way he can still pose easily without anything snapping or blocking his joints. On top of that, I also sculpted some belts that go on his boots and added a few tiny screw heads for his hands. Finally, we've made it to the star of the show, the scissor hands. I started by sculpting his gloves, and for the scissor blades, I'm using ABS plate. It's a material that's super popular with Gundam customizers because it's easy to carve and perfect for sharp, clean shapes like scissors. I'm using 0.5mm sheets, layering them to get the right thickness. It's way easier to cut thin layers than trying to work with something thick like 2mm of plate. And yes, I actually use my Cricut for this. I know I invested in one just for this hobby, but no regrets though. Luckily it handles thin ABS plates. Well, to be honest, barely. Next, I attach all the blades to the hand using Worbla. Next, let's paint everything black using black acrylic. After the black base coat, I painted the blades with silver metallic and the gloves with bronze. Then I added a black wash over everything to bring out the details and give it that worn grungy look, just like in the movie. I also dry brushed the shoes with a bit of white acrylic to bring out the texture and added highlights using a gold marker pen to make the small details pop back out. Now let's move on to the head. I already shrunk the head using acetone off camera, as you can see here. This helps match the scale of the new body and makes the final doll look more balanced. I started by lightening the face with some soft pastel, but then I realized the lips were a bit too full for Edward's look, so I carefully carved them down to make them thinner. For Edward's scar, I'm experimenting with UV gel, yes, the kind used for nail art. I love trying out different materials to see what works best, so let's see how this one holds up. It turned out pretty well, so I think I might use this again in the future. Now let's move on to the face-up. I started by sketching the shape of his eyes using a watercolor pencil. It helps map everything out before we add more details. Next, I use soft pastels to add shadows and shape his face. This helps give him more dimension and that slightly tired, sunken look Edward is known for. This part is a bit repetitive, but it's super important. We build up the colors layer by layer, sealing in between each step. That way, the colors stay vibrant and really pop in the end. Now that we're almost at the final step, I'll be using 100% acrylic yarn for his hair, but before that, I'm painting his scalp black. I'm not going to show you how I made the hair wefts from yarn in this video, or else it would get way too long. But if you want to see that process, check out my other videos where I go over it step by step. Now let's style the hair. I start by cutting it with a sharp knife or razor so the ends don't look blunt or straight. Then I curl the hair using a heated metal chopstick and tease it a bit to get that messy, grungy Edward look. Finally, I set everything in place using hair foam. And with that, our Edward Scissorhands doll is complete! In the next episode, I'll be creating an iconic female character, one I'm sure everyone will recognize, so stay tuned and thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. See you in the next video, bye!